All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We spend so much of our time on this show sifting through these massive stacks of data white papers, entire books, just trying to boil them down.
We do, but today we're doing the exact opposite.
We are. Instead of taking a lot and making it small, we're taking something incredibly brief and seeing just how expansive it can be.
We're looking at just 2 sentences, verses 53 and 54 from Sura Ghafir.
And the whole premise here is that when a text is this compressed, this dense, you can't just read it. You have to, I don't know, decode it.
It's a masterclass in structural efficiency. I mean, every single word, every verb change is doing some serious heavy lifting.
It really is. We're looking at a text that basically outlines the entire life cycle of knowledge, how it starts, how it's preserved.
And crucially, how it can be lost even while you're holding it in your hands.
That's the part that gets me, the idea that you can possess the truth and still completely miss the point. So our mission today is a really close reading. We're going to try and unpack this whole transmission of knowledge, from one person to a huge group, and then this dual nature of what that knowledge actually does.
It's essentially a schematic, a blueprint for how wisdom survives, or maybe how it fails to survive, the passage of time.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Verse 53 starts with what feels like an origin event. The text reads, "We gave Moses our guidance and made the children of Israel the inheritors of the book."
It opens with a really direct, vertical transaction. We gave Moses our guidance.
Yeah, the directness is striking. There's no ambiguity at all. You have the we, divine voice, and you have Moses. It's so immediate.
It is. Moses isn't, reading a history book. He's in the room, so to speak.
Exactly.
And that immediacy, that's the defining feature of a founder figure in these kinds of stories. Moses receives guidance. The Arabic term is often huda. And guidance is, well, it's dynamic. It's a lived thing.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if I'm guiding you through a mountain pass, I'm right there with you. I'm pointing out the loose rock. It's real-time data.
Right. But then the text just pivots. And this is where, for me, the tension starts to build. It moves from Moses, the individual, to the children of Israel, from the singular to the plural.
And from the immediate moment to a generational timeline.
Yes. The text says it made the children of Israel the inheritors of the book.
And 2 huge shifts just happened in that one clause. First, the method changes. Moses was given. The children of Israel are made inheritors.
And the object changes too. Moses got guidance. The inheritors get the book.
Exactly.
Okay, let's pull apart that idea of inheritance first. Usually we think of inheritance as a good thing, windfall. You get the house, the money.
Sure.
But in the logic of this text, inheritance implies a loss, doesn't it?
It absolutely implies absence. You only inherit something when the person who owned it is gone or stepping aside.
So it's a sign that the direct connection that Moses experienced, you mentioned, is over. It's been severed.
Precisely. The inheritors are now operating in the wake of the event. They have the legacy, sure, but they don't have the man.
And that distinction creates this massive vulnerability. The founder has the actual fire, but the inheritors just have the fireplace.
That's a great way to put it. They have the structure, but not necessarily the heat. And that's why the object has to shift from guidance to the book.
Because you can't rely on real-time direction anymore.
Not when you're talking about a collective legacy that needs to span centuries. You have to codify it. You have to write it down.
So the book is the necessary freezing of that initial dynamic guidance.
It's necessary, but it's also risky. The book, Al-Kitab, is static. It's an object. It can sit on a shelf. It can be copied, memorized, passed down.
But because it's an object, it can be owned without being understood.
Exactly. Moses couldn't have the guidance without experiencing it. But the children of Israel can definitely have the book without having a clue what it really means.
It reminds me of the difference between a startup founder's vision and the corporate policy manual 50 years later. Well, the founder operated on instinct, a direct feel for the market. The employees, 50 years down the line, they just have a PDF of rules.
That's a perfect analogy. The employees are the inheritors of the book. They have the codification of the founder's wisdom.
Yeah.
But do they have the wisdom itself?
Right, and that's the central tension the text is setting up here. It's saying that inheritance is a legal status, not an intellectual one.
Okay.
Which brings us to the next verse. If the inheritors are left with this object, the book, what is this tool actually for? Verse 54 defines it. It calls the book a guide and an admonition to men of understanding.
A guide and an admonition. It's a dual function system. The order matters, but the pairing matters more.
And we tend to like the guide part. Guide feels friendly, positive. It's the GPS saying turn left to reach your destination. It's forward motion.
Right. A guide is directional. It solves the problem of where am I supposed to go? It gives you the vector. Without a guide, you're just stuck. It's the yes function of the text.
But then you get admonition. That's a word we don't really use much. It sounds, I don't know, punitive.
It's often translated as a warning or a caution. If the guide is about positive liberty, the admonition is about constraint. It's the no function,
The guardrail.
the guardrail, the sign that says high voltage, do not touch.
And in our world today, we have a very complicated relationship with that idea. We love articles on 5 steps to success. We are less keen on 5 ways you are about to ruin your life.
We hear admonition and we think it's judgment, but structurally, within a system of knowledge, it's just feedback. A map that only shows you the safe roads but like deletes the cliffs, that's a dangerous map. It's useless.
So the text is arguing that for this book to be worth anything, it has to have both. It has to say go, and it also has to say stop.
Think of it in terms of systems theory. A system with only positive feedback just spins out of control. It has no boundaries.
And a system with only negative feedback, only admonition.
It grinds to a halt. It has no movement. So the text defines the book as this perfectly balanced regulator. It pushes and it pulls.
And this dual nature, it seems like it's the real test for the inheritors. Because going back to your point, Moses didn't need the admonition in the same way. He had the direct channel.
Exactly. The inheritors, navigating by the text alone, are much more likely to drift. They're susceptible to entropy.
So over time,
And
they might drift toward what's easy.
They might embrace all the guide parts, the parts that confirm how special they are, and conveniently ignore the admonition parts that demand discipline or correction.
Or they could do the opposite. You see groups that get obsessed with the admonition, the rules, the punishments, the don'ts, and they totally lose the guide.
And they stop moving forward. They just become gatekeepers of the cliff edge.
Both are a failure of inheritance.
They are. The text is very precise. It's both a guide and an admonition. If you're only using half of it, you're not using the tool correctly. You're misusing the legacy.
Which leads us to the final, and I think most critical phrase in these 2 verses. The text doesn't just stop there. It adds a qualifier. It says the book is a guide and admonition to men of understanding.
This is it. This is the user authentication clause. This is the DRM.
It fundamentally restricts the utility of the book. It's basically saying this whole thing, this legacy, it only works if the user possesses understanding.
And we have to be really careful with that word, understanding. The Arabic term, ulul albab, it doesn't just mean smart people.
Not just a high IQ.
No.
Right.
It refers to people who get to the core, to the essence of things. It implies active cognition, reflection. It's the difference between seeing a red light and knowing to stop versus understanding why stopping at that red light saves your life.
So it's not a passive quality, it's an active processing requirement.
Exactly. The text is establishing that the book on its own is inert. It's just ink on paper. It has the potential for guidance and the potential for admonition.
But that potential is only unlocked, only converted into actual wisdom when it's processed by a man of understanding.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so this circles right back to the inheritor problem.
Yeah.
You can be a rightful inheritor, you can have the lineage, own the library, memorize the text,
All of it.
and yet, if you aren't a man of understanding, the book is effectively blank to you.
That is the terrifying implication of verse 54. It decouples possession from benefit. You can own the map and still be completely lost. Then you're just a museum curator. You're guarding a relic. You aren't actually being guided.
So there's this fascinating loop in the text. You start with the divine giving to Moses, that's revelation. Then you move to the community inheriting the book, that's preservation. And then you end with the individual man of understanding unlocking the book, that's activation.
Revelation, preservation, activation. And if you break the chain at that final link, the whole system fails. The inheritors of the book become irrelevant if they aren't also the men of understanding.
It almost suggests that understanding is the mechanism that lets the inheritor reconnect with the founder's experience.
That's a profound way to put it. The understanding is the bridge across the generational gap. It collapses the time between the gave from verse 53 and the now of the reader. It makes the static text dynamic again.
But it requires facing the admonition part. And I think that's the real sticking point for a lot of inheritors.
Yeah.
To really understand, you have to be willing to be corrected by the text, not just affirmed by it.
That's the hardest part of any critical engagement. A true intellect, a true ulul albab, approaches a source asking, where am I wrong? The passive inheritor approaches it asking, tell me why I'm right. The text explicitly says it's an admonition. If you're not feeling the friction of that, you're probably not engaging the understanding it demands.
You're just reading your own reflection in it.
Or precisely.
So what we have here is a diagnosis of a historical problem. You go from a charismatic founder to a bureaucratic legacy. You have a living message that gets sort of ossified into a fixed text.
And then you have the solution, the continuous active application of intellect to unlock it. And notice it doesn't say two men of faith or loyalty.
It says two men of understanding.
It prioritizes the cognitive act. It demands that you think.
That is a bold demand. It suggests you can't outsource your spiritual or intellectual work. You can't just say, well, my ancestors had the book, so I'm good.
No. The text says, what are you doing with it right now? It creates a meritocracy inside the aristocracy of the chosen. Everyone gets the inheritance, but only the thinkers get the guidance.
It's a direct challenge to the reader. It turns the text from a passive object into a kind of mirror. If you aren't getting guidance from it, and you aren't being corrected by it,
Then the problem isn't the book.
the problem is your lack of understanding.
It puts all the responsibility right back on the individual. The legacy gives you the tools, but you have to build the house.
That is incredibly dense stuff for 2 sentences. We gave Moses guidance and made the children of Israel inheritors of the book, a guide and an admonition to men of understanding.
A complete system in 25 words.
So here's the final thought I want to leave with you. We often pride ourselves on what we've inherited, our cultural traditions, our great books, our science. We see these as assets we just possess by default.
Things we have in the bank.
Exactly. But if we follow the logic we've just unpacked, those assets are locked. They're conditional. So the question is this: are you actually an inheritor, or are you just holding on to the paperwork? If you aren't actively engaging the admonition, the parts of reality or text that challenge you, and if you aren't applying active understanding, have you effectively disinherited yourself?
Can you lose the legacy simply by failing to think about it?
I think this text suggests you absolutely can. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.